Okay, yay, now we can start. Cool, that's nice. This is legit now, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the. I feel like every time I do that, I'm Matt Pat from Game Theory.
A little
But anyways,
repeat.
whatever. I know. But hello, everyone. Okay, just recycle this. We'll do this intro again. It's gone downhill completely.
Just go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick. Over there, as usual, is Justin providing gameplay and side commentary. And yeah, this is probably one of the worst intros we've done in weeks, but whatever. So today, why am I just doing this? Why am I breaking my own intro? I don't know why.
Speak, man, speak.
Yeah, I know. I think I might just recycle all of this in editing. Editor, take note.
You're making
Uh,
me do more work.
I know. Editor,
And
take note.
and you realize it's gonna take longer for the video to come out.
I'm well aware of that, but anyways, this week on Midweek Gaming, it's interesting because I actually had no real idea of what we were going to do for this week. I had an idea, but I didn't know if I'd go through with it. That being, we're going to cover Diablo 4. Excuse me. Don't worry, I know that Diablo 4 has technically only been out for like a day, maybe a day and a half at most, so I'm not going to cover anything in terms of the story. Thankfully, Diablo games are more fleshed out than just their story, so there's a lot of talk about here beyond it, but just so we're clear, no story topics. But it's weird because, like I said, technically I don't cover things this early, but it's technically been out for like 2.5 weeks, a week, maybe not 2.5 weeks, a week, maybe two. I don't remember when it exactly came into early access, but at least a week, I believe. So, yeah, it's weird. It is in a weird position where I can talk about it because it's technically past the deadline, but it technically also isn't because it only just came out. But I'm not sure many people bought Diablo 4 early, so I'm just gonna pretend that it's been out for at least a week and talk about it, despite my fact that I usually don't.
There you
So
go.
yeah, dragging on intro aside, let's talk about Diablo 4. Like I said, no story, but just the stuff about Diablo 4. So, unfortunately, I'm the only one who again has played it. Justin has not. So let's start off with some basic trivia. Justin, how much do you know about Diablo?
I know a little bit about the Diablo series, that being the fact that you've got like this ancient evil that you have adventurers basically constantly going in and being like, I will defeat you, and then they get their head kicked in. And it's this ancient evil that just kind of has a perpetual cycle going on.
Yeah, that's more or less it. But the way you described it at first, I'm like, but isn't that technically every villain ever in cinema? I will
And
defeat you,
and
then
then
destroy
and then you think about it a little more, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, it is.
So there you go. So basic knowledge, very basic knowledge, but we'll work with that. We'll work with that. Yeah, Diablo's basically this. It's funny because if you look at the story of Diablo, don't worry, I said we're not covering the actual story of Diablo 4, but previous stories I can touch on. If you actually look at the story of Diablo as a franchise, Diablo himself has actually been technically dead for
Yes.
what, 2, 3 games now? Like the aforementioned demon Diablo has actually been technically dead for at least 2 games now. But his namesake's still in the box cover because hey, he's got a really good name. That's like naming something Oryx for Destiny and then having Oryx die and then, we're just gonna
Oryx
keep
is dead.
we're just gonna keep the naming convention. We're still gonna call it Oryx, despite the fact he's been technically dead for at least 10 years, but whatever. um Whatever, moving on. But yeah, like I said, it's interesting. This time around, we're not fighting any ancient evil in the most traditional sense. This time, it's Lilith, the interesting daughter of hatred. She's called that because her father is literally the demon of hatred. I can't remember what the hell his name is. Diablo fans, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really do much in the way of lore for the series. I'm only recently getting into it. But yeah, no. So Lilith is back for reasons that are not explained. And she's doing things for reasons that are not explained. I mean, I've progressed far enough to know, but I'm not telling you because, like I said, we're not covering that. And yeah, your job is basically to deal with Lilith and all the nonsense that comes with having a powerful demon walk the earth again.
Yes.
And this one, by the sounds of it, takes place quite a ways after Diablo 3. Like, it sounds like the business of Diablo 3 has happened like long ago. Like there are some characters in it that look like they've, it's been a while since, they're old now, and when they were young, it was basically Diablo 3. So I'm guessing it's been a while. So yeah, quite a big time jump. But when it comes to gameplay and actual the roots of Diablo, it's all still there for the most part. Again, it's interesting to cover Diablo as a franchise because it's made by Activision Blizzard, and we don't like Activision Blizzard for a variety of reasons. Same reasons we don't like EA. Normally, chief among them that they're horribly corrupt. But, tis business.
Yep.
But when it comes to how they've actually is a good segue to another part. How exactly has the monetization of Diablo gone? Well, just about as good as you'd imagine it. Truth be told, there's no time savers or any boosters as of yet that I've seen. But if the deluxe pack is anything to go by, season passes will get introduced somewhere down the line. Because again, there's season pass boosters and stuff in there that I haven't redeemed yet because we don't have those yet. So it's somewhere down the line. But as far as time savers go for actual progress, it doesn't look like there's anything in there. The cash shop itself is basically pure cosmetic stuff. Granted, they're all horribly priced. But, and I mean horribly as in that they're overpriced, but whatever. That is Activision for you, so I don't suppose anyone's really
The
surprised
usual.
to hear that. You know, yeah, the usual. But aside from that, there's really no monetization in this game as of yet, and I stress that as of yet. This wouldn't be the first time that Activision's pulled a fast one. The Crash racing game, I'm looking at you. They said they wouldn't put microtransactions in, and then after all the reviews came in, guess what? They immediately went around and did. So, it wouldn't be the first time Activision's pulled a fast one to slip monetization into the game excessively in the aftermath of something.
Yep.
So, oh dear lord, I don't know if you guys can hear my phone is going off in terms of notifications. Turn this off. I have people that say, "Why don't I ever have my notifications for my phone on?" It's quite simple, really. If I
This
do,
is
you'll
why.
constantly hear it. Yeah, you're just gonna constantly hear it going off, ding, 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 like every 5 or 6 times a second, or every at least once a minute. So, yeah, that's why I don't have it on. To anyone who asks me why I don't, but regardless. Yeah, when it comes to actually Diablo as a series, though, it's mostly intact outside of the microtransactions, everything else. It's like I've heard some people say that Diablo 4 is basically just Diablo 3 years later, and it's not that bad. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like the graphics are major improvement, obviously, because Diablo 3 came out what year? I don't even remember now. Like at least 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And now that Diablo is coming out, 4 coming out in the modern day, the graphics are far better. And actually, it does the game a good service. Not just speaking as a grammar Nazi, or not grammar Nazi, as a graphics Nazi, but as an actual, like, state of the game. I think it really does help with the atmosphere. The music of Diablo 4 is still very good. Or the music of Diablo 4 is good. As is most of the other series music. It's not bad. I have explored around in the menus and I've seen that there is a PvP option, but I've not found a way to unlock it yet. I don't know if that's a story thing or I don't know if that's just something they'll add down the line. We will see. From what I can tell, I think it's just an add down the line thing, but I could be wrong there. And it's funny because the way you challenge people to PvP by the looks of it is it's in actually your emote scroll panel. And on one of the tabs on the very bottom is challenge someone to PvP. And I'm like, that's a weird place to put the PvP button. But you know what? That actually feels somewhat traditional now that I think about it, because I think old games like Star Wars: The Old Republic, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've never played it, but I think this is how it worked as well. World of Warcraft also functioned in a similar way. I think it was like in the emote wheel somewhere along there, and it would just be a challenge to PvP button.
I think so. There's always been like an option within menus or some kind of selection between players. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's more along the lines of a traditional thing. In terms of Diablo's actual essence, though, it's still Diablo. It's the dungeon crawler. It's the I don't want to say looter, but you know, it is the game that everyone more or less remembers. Like they haven't taken any drastic turns in terms of how the gameplay feels and how the loop works. One of the big things they have taken that is a major departure, though, one thing that is worth noting, for the most part, is they've taken more of an open world esque feel to it. Now, like, this is funny because even I think Justin, you were saying, and I think the last video, or maybe it was off the call sometime, but you said how not every game needs to be open world, right?
Yeah, I've said
And
that
yet,
a few times.
this one is.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. I don't think that's to the detriment of the game, though, because as a guy who has played like Diablo 3 and started off the Diablo games on 3, I think a lot of people have. There's been a lot of time, like I said, between 3 and 4. I think at least 5, 6 years, but if not more. Um, Diablo has always been a very linear, level-based game. You go to X level, you do X things. Maybe there's some cross offs for side dungeons here and there that you can go in, get extra loot, come back to the main quest, and then keep going. But it's very linear in terms of how you do it. It's very path oriented. Not linear in the terms of like, your traditional linear if you go down corridor X and do this. But, well, even there is some of that because it's a dungeon crawler. But that just comes by nature. But what I mean by linear is that it's sectioned off by levels, and as you progress through the story, you just go through the levels. They can be fairly big levels, but they are just levels at the end of the day. Diablo 4 takes this and out the window with it. They just made an entire world map for the entire world of Diablo and just said, go nuts. And that'll lead to it'll be interesting because like I said, generally when it comes to missions they're more close by because Diablo, like I said, the previous Diablo games were not like that. But now that the open world aspect has been introduced, sometimes you'll get a mission where it's like, okay, here, go here and do XYZ thing.
Go do thing, and then
And then on the other end of the map it's like, okay, now go do that over there, and you have to like cross a mountain to get to it. It's quite a lot of trekking, which is funny because the game still has mounts, which again they had also in Diablo 3, where you could get horses and there's cosmetics for horses, but that's a whole other story. But you could get a mount, and it allows you to move around the level faster. In the previous Diablo games, this was a useful tool, but it wasn't really like a big thing, right? Because it's at the end of the day just a level. So if you wanted to, you could ditch them out entirely and just walk the whole thing. But now the open world aspect has been introduced. You kind of want to get a mount because otherwise you're going to be doing a lot of walking, and trust me, it is time consuming. Not bad time consuming, but time consuming.
something you still have to do.
Yeah, something you still have to do. Which, let's go further into the open world. What will you find in the open world? Well, there's a thing you'll get introduced with pretty early on called a Statues of Lilith, which will grant you permanent stat boosts if you find them. They are not marked on the map. You're just going to have to find them around the open world. Once you activate them, then they'll show up. So those are nice to have. There's aspects of power which allow you. They're basically rewards for first time completing an optional major side dungeon in the open world. And they are worth collecting because there's actually an entire sect of upgrades you can do for weapons revolving around them, where you can basically give particularly powerful stat boosts to certain weapons, which will boost your class depending on which class you are. I believe some aspects are class specific. Well, no, some are definitely class specific, but I don't know if all of them are. It looks like some of them are not. So even if you're not a certain class, maybe you want to collect them for maybe a future playthrough, or possibly a generalist upgrade for any class. Because you might be playing multiple characters at once. You never know. I generally don't, but someone might. Or for definitely future playthroughs. That
Just
being said, let's excuse me as I stretch on this side. Let's go into what types of classes you will have. You have the usual. You have the sorcerer. You have the barbarian. You have the druid. I believe that's an old class. No, no, druid is not. You have the rogue. That's an old class. You've got your three standards, but you've also got another two. Yeah, you've got those three, and then you have another two, I believe. You have the Druid, which I don't know if that's a new addition to Diablo 4. I don't remember seeing it in Diablo 3, so it's possibly a new addition. I believe it is. And you have the Necromancer. The Necromancer is not a new addition. It was actually a class you could get in Diablo 3 after getting a DLC, the Reaper of Souls, which was basically the continuation of the story, which unlocked the Necromancer class. Now they're just bringing it officially into Diablo 4 straight on. So if you like the Necromancer, now you can just play him from the get go, like I did. Because when I got Diablo 3, they already had the Reaper of Souls update out, so I could just start running him from the get go. Though I believe I played a little bit of the Sorcerer first, but regardless. So yeah, those are kind of the classes you have to work with. When it comes to how exactly the classes are structured, again, I can't speak entirely of this, but from what I can gather, every class has a primary aspect and kind of a secondary thing they can kind of do decently, but not very well. So, for example, take the Necromancer, my class. From what I can gather, the Necromancer is very good at PV, or not PVE, basically DPS in general. It's fun for the Necromancer because you can field an entire army of skeletons, technically, and just have them fighting for you. The crutch to the Necromancer is that by himself, he is not very tanky. So, yeah, he's very good at power, but he seems to have the same issue my Warlock does in Destiny, where he's a glass cannon. Take away his skeletons, and if you're not careful, he falls pretty fast. So that's something to keep in mind. But, other than that, he's not a bad class. But again, maybe I'm just not specking him right. I'm specking into more of health regen at
Setting
the
it
moment.
all up and all that.
Yeah, setting it all up. But I find that, like I said, generally, when you don't have a skeleton, you are much more vulnerable. You don't have skeleton warriors, you are much more vulnerable. Because again, the skeletons will kind of. The nice part about having skeletons is that not only do they do damage, but they also kind of distract enemies. So when you have a boss, you might have the boss aggroing onto your skeletons instead of aggroing onto you, which is good because you can always make more skeletons. So it's a nice way to make sure you don't take any damage. How this will play out in PvP, however, we will see. I doubt a PvPer is obviously going to aggro the skeletons. They'll just go straight for you.
Yeah, yeah. From personal online experience, there are a lot of people who would just be like, "Oh, there's a player. There's also a bunch of ads trying to kill me. Get the player."
So, we'll see. Maybe some level advantage will. Well, it might be like Destiny where they turn off the levels for this, but we will have to see. In my experience, when it comes to online PvP game or online games with PvP at like stuff like this, sometimes the levels are on, sometimes they're off. It might depend entirely on how the context of the duel works. I will admit, back in the day on Star Wars: The Old Republic, I would, as a level 10 or 15 Sith Inquisitor, walk around the beginning area and just challenge newbies to duels. And of course, none of them were stupid enough to accept. All except one guy. In retrospect, I feel bad for him because I literally just, swung my blade and he fell. But whatever. It was a thing, but so we
Yeah.
will see if the level advantages have anything to do with how tanky you are compared to other players in PvP, or if it's purely just a skill-based thing. Like I said, I imagine a DPS fighting a tank. Not sure how well that'll play out. Speaking of tanks, let's go over to the tank. The Druid. Oh no, I haven't finished the Necromancer. The second Necromancer thing that they can do is support, most specifically debuffing, and a few of their stuff can actually get stronger based on hitting people with debuffs or doing debuffs or da 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 da. So debuffs are kind of the support role that a Necromancer can also fill. They can also do a little bit of healing, but that's beside the point. We'll see if there's more support in the tree later down the line, because it's funny. The way the stat trees work in Diablo 4 is that it's kind of like a path, and you get a branching path, but instead of branching outwards, it branches down, like a root system. And it's a single line, and you'll get like several core blocks, and you'll just kind of, the more you unlock the next core block, the more stuff around it. it's complicated, but trust me, when you look at it in practice, it's really not. But the point is that you can't actually see what's on those core blocks for the most part until you actually unlock it. So maybe there's support stuff in the Necromancer tree I'm not seeing, other than, debuff stuff, but we'll see. By the sounds of it, not, because I think I'm almost done it and I haven't seen much yet, so we'll see. But yeah. So, long story short, Necromancer can fill primary DPS role, somewhat in the way of support, if you build him right. Now moving on to the tank, the Druid. The, I believe, officially new class as of Diablo 4. The Druid, by the sounds of it, is a tank. Basically a tank, with, by the sounds of it, a bit of healing thrown on the side. Because I imagine Druids have some level of, healing stuff to them. They're basically forest elves without the pointy ears, and if they all went to the gym and got majorly jacked. So, well, at least the ones you can play as. So, again, they're basically tanks. They can shapeshift into different animals. I believe one of them is a werewolf. I believe another one is a bear, I think. And they can do a lot of damage, and they can soak up a lot of damage. But they're mostly tanks. And, like I said, another throw on the support role, but this time in the case of healing. Because I'm guessing tanks have to have some way of healing themselves. Again, I kind of have to guesstimate some of this stuff because I have not played all of them yet. But this is just from what I'm gathering. I might be completely off the mark here. And that's the case, I deeply apologize. But anyways, moving on to the Sorcerer. The Sorcerer is, from what I can remember from Diablo 3, which I'm guessing holds true of Diablo 4, more of a, it's basically the Necromancer, but in reverse. So instead of primarily focusing on DPS and then support, it's the other way around. It's support and a bit of DPS on the side. Buffs, debuffs, but also some weapons, or also some devastating spells you can throw in there. So, not bad. Not a bad variety. Moving on to the Barbarian, one of the original classes of Diablo. The Barbarian is basically the Druid, but throw away the defense or throw away the support and just put on offense. They are basically Guardians from Destiny 2, or they're basically Titans from Destiny 2. They are very tanky and they can be very deadly, but they don't really have much in the way of support, so they can't really help themselves in a fight too much, or at least other people in a fight. They probably have some stuff to help themselves, but mostly offensive, most somewhat defensive, but no, not much in the way of support. So don't expect too many buffs or debuffs from them. That moves us on to, let's see, Necromancer, Barbarian. Ah, yes. We already covered the Sorcerer as well. Ah, yes, and the Rogue. I believe that's all of them. Correct me if I'm wrong if I missed any, Justin.
I don't know of any.
There's 5. Have I said 5 yet?
Well, here, go over the ones that you've said.
I've gone over the Necromancer. I've gone over the Druid. I've gone over the Sorcerer. I've just finished the Barbarian. So yeah, no, I'm on the last one.
There you go.
So anyways, moving on to the last one, we have the Rogue. The Rogue kind of falls into the level of the DPS as well, but also with the support skills similar to the Necromancer. But how it plays out is differently, obviously, compared to the Necromancer. When it comes to the Necromancer, how Necromancers work is they kind of overwhelm you with numbers, right? Necromancers can be quite powerful on themselves, but the true power comes in the fact that they can literally just throw a miniature trash mob army at you and just say, kill it.
Have a good
And
day.
just, yeah, no. They'll throw a trash mob army at you, and that'll be basically what happens. And so you'll just get gangbanged on all sides. I don't think I can say that on YouTube. I don't know, actually. I don't know if I can say that. We'll just pretend I can and move along. But yeah, you'll just get beaten from all sides, so... eh. And again, they're very good at drawing off aggro from themselves and possibly teammates, because again, the skeletons can take some of it. The thing about rogues is that they really don't do much of that. How they do it is they basically work off weaknesses and dodging. So they basically more along the lines of making enemies vulnerable and then working from there. Again, I might be completely wrong on how I'm portraying the rogue, but that's
That's
just from what I've gathered. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the opinions, or at least how I would believe they play out. I know the druid is to some degree a tank, like I said. I know the sorcerer is to some degree a DPS support because, like I said, I played him back in Diablo 3, and my logic is nothing's changed this time around. And again, I've played the necromancer extensively, so I know what that one works as. The barbarian, it's pretty self-explanatory. And like I said, the rogue's pretty much the only one I'm more guesstimating extremely on, so forgive me if I'm completely off the mark here. My mistake. But yeah, so that's more or less the classes and how they play out. Pick your poison, like I said. The fun thing about Diablo 4 is that it is actually cross-play and cross-save from what I've seen. I've not tested it yet, but from what I've read and from what Blizzard themselves have said, Diablo 4 is cross-play, cross-save. So I've got my stuff on PC right now. If I wanted to hypothetically go onto my Xbox and continue this, I could do that. So, by the sounds of it, it's not like, you're going to have to restart everything from scratch if you pick it up on another console, which is a good thing. Trust me, in some games, again, like Warframe, that is a very big barrier to going onto other platforms, is that you're going to have to restart everything. For some games, it's not that big of a deal because there's not really much to do that requires redoing, so to speak, or if you do go on another console, it's not like it's a major hassle. Yeah, it's a bit inconvenient, but it's not a big deal. But for Diablo, I don't know. Maybe it's in the middle of convenience and convenience, because like I said, you're going to have to do a lot of grinding for characters. You're going to want to spec out your characters how you want, obviously. And, there's going to be a lot of loot to grind and chase and grab. So you're not going to have to want to regrind some of that stuff because I imagine some drops are very rare. So
yeah.
I
It's
can
it's
see it being
probably gonna
useful.
be a lot similar to the others in its series, where it's been very RNG random loot based on good luck if you're going to get what you're looking for.
Yeah. From what I've seen, it's not that bad. I've gotten some pretty decent drops. Maybe I'm just lucky, though. In my experience, I'm probably not. So it might just be that it's improved this time around, but we'll see. But yeah, so don't worry. One big but I should put on the end of that is that it is server based. So anyone who plays Genshin Impact and knows that your stuff is tied to whatever server you started on. I believe a lot of multiplayer games that are from the older gen or older like era are also like that too. Again, World of Warcraft is I know like this. I know Star Wars Oath of like I definitely know is like that. Not sure about Final Fantasy, though I'm guessing that's probably the same as well. But again, so your stuff is tied to the server that you start off in. So just take note that if you're going to cross play on another platform or cross save or whatever have you, remember what server you're on. Because otherwise you might find that all your characters are gone.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. Like with World of Warcraft, the you if you want to go to another server kind of thing, you have to go and kind of buy to go to another server. You have to pay to go and move your character.
Yeah, I know that
So
some games do that.
so yeah, keep that in mind. There's a chance that that'll happen.
Yeah. I know that Blizzard has done it in the past. I remember reading that World of Warcraft is like that, where if you want to go to another server, you have to buy for your character to get transferred over. I don't believe that'll happen in Diablo because I don't feel like that's going to be as big of an issue, but it is worth mentioning.
Something to just keep your eyes open.
Like I said, there's not that much in the way of monetization as of yet, but we'll see how that goes. Back to the open world, though, there's one thing that's interesting. Having an open world means that you can have open world events that happen randomly. and you can have them kind of spread out throughout the open world. Like one open world event you can have is, for example, saving a peddler who's hiding under his cart from a bunch of demons attacking him. And when you have these open events, you get opals or curious opal or baubles or I can't remember what they're called, but basically it's a special currency that allows you to buy curios at shops in certain big cities or villages. And it's basically the chance to get a good drop of a certain type of thing. So let's say you want to roll the dice on getting a good helmet, you can use opals to buy those. And they're not too hard to acquire, like I said, because these random events are fairly frequently. Kind of like what Destiny does, again, going back to Destiny, for public events, but arguably with better rewards. Like, yeah, I get it. That's an RNG basis. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of unfortunate that it's an RNG base and not a straight purchase. But
Yeah, but that's a
it's at
given with it.
least yeah. But that's a given with it. But hey, at least it's more incentive to play the events. For potentially good drops. Especially if you've like got an entire set of armor that's decent, but you just have crap boots. You can be like, I want better boots. Grind for boots.
Yep. Well,
And
there you
it's
go.
funny how these events work, because technically there's two levels of them. There's completely a thing, and then there's the master version. The master version requires a certain activity to be completed on the side. Let's go back to that merchant cart, for example. Completing the activity is just kill all the demons. Mastering it is where the guy actually survives. I don't know why I find that funny, but I love how in the whole quest to protect the merchant actually surviving is the optional part. But
This is
whatever.
only an option. Good luck.
His survival is only optional. Good luck. But if you do complete the master version, you get better rewards as well as better. I don't know if you get more. I do believe you get more opals from the drop, but you also get better rewards that drop from the activity itself. Because again, these aren't just events to grind for opals; they're also a chance to get good loot because loot does also drop from these events. So again, mastering it can be at times more difficult than others. Another one you might encounter is I found one of them ironically inside a dungeon where sometimes you'll actually, if you explore dungeons, you'll also find these events just hidden away in the dungeon where, you'll destroy X thing, or in my case, save a lost soul. Again, it's funny how every time the whole shtick is just kill all the demons is just the basic requirement, but actually saving the soul in this case is the optional part. You know,
Uh,
being
Maybe
a good
it's
guy is
optional.
optional.
It's optional. We don't have to do that. We don't
Survive.
have to save the day.
We don't have to be a good guy. You just have to survive.
We just
Just
have
saying.
to live long enough.
But yeah, so there is that. But, it's an interesting activity. They appear in the open world sometimes, so Excuse me. The Loot Goblin is back, by the way. Anyone who remembers him from the previous Diablo games, he is back. I've at least run into the Loot Goblin twice. Has some fairly good loot, so it is worth chasing a Loot Goblin if you see him.
There you go.
And he can appear in the open world or in dungeons, so pick your poison. Though the thing about an open world is that, like I said, not only will you probably be, until you get a mountain anyway, trekking for quite a while, but you might also run into demons that you just previously killed. The respawn rate for demons in the open world is not that bad. Like, you're not going to kill the demon and then like 10 minutes later, or 5 minutes later, a new one's going to come out of the ground and come at you. But it is worth remembering that because it's an open world, there is some level of respawn rate for demons. Then again, for Diablo 3, it was kind of like that too, because parts of the map, I believe, were just longer form
Strewned
quests.
around.
Yeah. I might be misremembering Diablo 4, but I believe it was linear, like level based. But everyone was kind of thrown into the same level as kind of a communal level thing. It was kind of weird how it worked, but
It is what it is.
it is what it is. But yeah, regardless, like I said, the open world of Diablo 4 is massive. So you'll have quite a bit of space to play in. So don't worry about feeling claustrophobic with all the players. You'll be fine.
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. How it'll play out in about a year or two when everyone finally buys the game or doesn't buy the game, depending on what they want, and gets in the game, we'll see. But
Construction complete.
Speaking of all things, I haven't really covered the character customization screen, have I? Because here's the thing. Not only can you pick your class, you can also customize the character to how you want. Male, female, body type, da 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 da. You know, the usual stuff.
Building.
Is it a very extensive character creator?
Complete.
Not really. It's not like excessive. Like it's not like games like Mass Effect or a Fallout game where I'm gonna spend hours tweaking the cheekbones
Yeah.
until I've made something that looks either exactly like me or like a complete monstrosity that already got several doses of radiation.
Looks like something that came out of Star Trek or something.
I'm gonna make something for Fallout universe that actually looks like it got some pretty decent radiation to it. But regardless. But yeah, the character customizer is decent, but like I said, it's not too extensive, so don't worry about like spending hours in there. I'm sure some people will anyway, but like I said, you're not gonna spend hours tweaking cheekbones, so at least there's not that you have to worry about. And yeah, that's more or less it for the time being, or Diablo 4. That's kind of the state of the game as it lies. Anything you want to add, Justin? Anything that caught you?
Um, Not really. For the most part, it just sounds like a standard MMO, online MMO type thing. So there's nothing too crazy that stands out. It's kind of something you kind of have to wait and see what kind of story or whatnot major gameplay they have set up for the game.
For the Empire.
Yeah,
Like
that's the
what's
thing,
going to
right?
be the main driving force that brings players in.
Constructing.
Well, I mean, it's like everyone's been clamoring for a new Diablo for quite a while now. Because, like I said, the last Diablo was. Here, let me get an exact date. I've been saying it a lot, but I've never actually gotten an exact date in the entire video yet. Da, 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 da.
Copy. Fire at will.
Diablo 3 came out in 2012.
Attacking.
So, yeah, that is literally 10 years ago, or actually more as of now. So, 11 years ago.
Complete.
There you go.
That was a while ago. So, people have been clamoring for a new game for a very long time. So, you know, it's not like the draw is not there. Though it is funny because, again, the history of Diablo recently has been quite interesting considering how Activision Blizzard has handled the Diablo as a franchise.
What they've done
There
with it.
was, yeah, there's the whole Diablo Immortal business that gave us the famous line of, "Do you guys not have phones?" Which,
They
yeah, the
will
level
never
of
recover from.
they will never they won't. I'm not sure if they'll recover from it. They'll definitely never live it down. But you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
It'll always be remembered.
It'll always be remembered. So, you know, seeing the finally a new major Diablo game made is itself a massive selling point because Diablo was in many ways the kind of predecessor to all major hack and slashes for the most part. I'd like to think because the original came out in like what, the 90s sometime.
Um, Early '90s, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 19. Well, no, like 1997, so late 90s. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of the predecessor to all major hack and slashes. Like every big dungeon, like
Dungeon
most
crawler like.
dungeon crawler hack and slashes have taken their inspiration from the Diablo franchise. It was basically the one that everyone modeled themselves after ever since, and still do to this day. So, you know, it's a pretty big series. So to see another game itself, like I said, will be the draw in and of itself. How it will play out several years down the line, we will see. Like I said, from the sounds of it, it's actually not that bad. You'd think with the open world aspect to it now, or the major like open world aspect to it, and not just kind of like levels, like communal levels, so to speak, that you know, the dungeon aspect would kind of go by the wayside. it really hasn't. Like I said, they are pretty abundant, and most story stuff, if any story stuff, still is inside these dungeons. And even with the way the open world works, it doesn't feel like an open, flat field. Like it still feels like the open world is itself one gigantic dungeon. Just, a lot more varied and, outside.
A lot more elaborate.
Yeah, elaborate. So it doesn't just feel like one big flat field. So it still feels like a dungeon in a way. At least that's my feel. That's my take on it. But, you know. So Diablo is still there. It's not like it's gone too far into obscurity when it comes to what it's doing. But I digress. Anyways, we'll cap it there because otherwise I'll sit here and ramble on all day. Any final thoughts, Justin?
No.
I've already kind of asked you that, but now any real final thoughts?
It's, like I said, for the most part, it's kind of in that state of, all right, I'm a new RPG MMO, guys, check me out. And it's like, all right, what makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd?
That's the thing, right? I don't feel like Diablo falls into that because, like I said, Diablo is very much an established franchise.
Yeah, no, but I'm speaking along the lines of if they're trying to go for like an online type thing,
Mm,
then it'll be interesting. If they're gonna stay with the Diablo formula, then yeah, I'm sure they'll do fine. But if they're gonna try to branch out and kind of become an online MMO type of thing, like kind of like a RuneScape type of thing, then it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
mm. Well, like I said, this isn't their first attempt at doing it. Diablo 3, like I said, had a good amount of online to it. It was, I believe, along the lines of almost communal levels in a way, right?
Right.
So it's not like this is their first time doing it. This is just their first time in a more open-ish setting where it's not like you go from one point to the next to the next to the next on the map. It's, just one gigantic level.
Yep.
And that's kind of their open world. But
You kind of have
like
to
I
see
said,
where it goes.
mhm. I doubt, like I said, they'll do that poorly. I think they'll be fine. But,
Yep.
well, anyways, that's Diablo 4. That's the state of things as they are now. Like I said, not too badly monetized outside of the egregious pricing, which is surprising for Activision. We'll see how long that stays.
Let's see where they go with that.
Yeah, I give it a week before they put in like some aggressive form of, you know, penny pinching. Besides the overinflated prices.
Money, please.
Money, please. That might as well just be the thing they put in front of their offices. Like that's going to be the thing their CEO just has on his desk. Not the nameplate. No, 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 no. His desk literally just has the plate that says "Money, please."
Well,
But
what can you do?
what can you do? Anyways, that's Diablo 4. Hope you enjoyed this week's video. Hopefully, we'll have something else by next week that is not such a rush jumping out the door. I only say that because, like I said, I really didn't know if we were going to do this until like either just literally the night before or like an hour before the show. But hopefully we'll have something bigger then. It was between this and now I remember the last like big online event in Monster Hunter Rise. So, I think this is bigger than that though. If I might just say, no disrespect to the Monster Hunter franchise, I love that game series, but
You know.
you know, I feel like Diablo warrants more of a full video than the last online event in Monster Hunter Rise. Which don't get me wrong, is still a big thing. It's might be the end of that game's support, but we'll see. Anyways, that's the video, guys. Have a good day. Have a good week. Yada yada yada.
Yes.
See you next week.
And enjoy this final bit of film-like stuff going on.
What exactly are you doing? Like, which side are you even on?
I've been on the Empire side.
Of course.
Well, it's pretty easy to play the Empire in this game, especially because there's literally a singular fighter that can basically win you every single space battle. So,
Well, in fairness,
stupid OP.
I still remember when I played through the game. I still remember playing the Empire and just getting to the Death Star, and then just going on a planet genocide across the galaxy.
Yeah.
I basically took every planet that was not mine and blew it up.
Yeah.
There, guys, we won the war.
See, I'm playing with a higher unit cap mod, so I can go and basically throw down hundreds of units into a battlefield all at once. So, it's very nice, because then you can just death stack on a world that goes in as a key point for enemy attacks and be like, all right, well, you can't pass this point because I have a death stack.
Well, there's no fun in that.
Well, that's what I do anyways, even without the mod, so what a difference be? What a difference be? Same strategy.
So
Only
playing against you is the epitome of not fun. Good to
yeah,
know.
the epitome of I'm going to death stack you, goodbye. I am
Never
the
play him.
Protoss death ball.
Nah. I was actually debating on getting StarCraft too.
Though Protoss death balling is much more difficult in StarCraft 1 than it is StarCraft 2.
Anyways, we'll cut this here. Bye bye, everyone.
Have a good one.